name is Bonnie Ringer, and I had the opportunity to do my internship at the Upper Valley Child Advocacy Center in Rexburg, Idaho. And the Upper Valley Child Advocacy Center is where we advocate for children who have been abused in any way. So that could be sexually, physically, emotionally. And a lot of the times there will be child advocates there and forensic interviews and law enforcement and many other people that work with the Child Advocacy Center to help those children succeed and to overcome the hardships that they've had. So for the way I found my internship, I was actually really scared because I didn't know how to find an internship. And so what I did is I looked online a lot and I found great internships by emailing BYU-Idaho internship office and stuff like that. But I honestly, the way I heard of this internship was just by word of mouth. And one of my friends in my child advocacy class, she was the one who introduced the internship to me. And I was like, oh, cool. How do I apply? Or how do I get connected to these people? And she just sent me the link, and it's the uppervalleycsc.org that I wrote on the slide right there. And I just applied. They have like an internship tab where you can just apply to be an intern on their website. And after that, they emailed me and asked me for an interview. And it was really cool because they gave me this sheet where I could fill out like what I wanted to say during the interview. So they would give me questions and I would answer them. And that was really helpful because it made me less nervous. And I could refer to the sheet as I talked to them during the interview. And then after that, they just got in contact with me and asked me, hey, like, do you want to be an intern at our Child Advocacy Center? And I said, of course, that sounds awesome. And so that's kind of how I found my internship. For my internship responsibilities, I had a lot of things that I got to do for my internship, which I'm very grateful for because I was a little worried because I never knew how an internship went, but it was awesome because it worked out really great. So I loved my supervisor because she was very helpful to me, and she wanted all the interns to get the best learning experience they could and to actually be thrown into the work of child advocacy. And that was really awesome because she was always checking up on us and making sure that we were doing things to help us progress and to learn. And I was really grateful for that. So I wrote a list of things I have done. There are many more things. I just can't talk about them all because there's just so many. But the first thing that I wrote was CPOs. So CPOs are known as Civil Protection Orders. And I had the opportunity to make a brochure for the Child Advocacy Center about CPOs. And just to educate families and get them to understand why we have CPOs. It's kind of like a restraining order. It's kind of like what people view them as. And so I just made a brochure helping them understand what it was, did a lot of research, and made sure I was doing it right with my supervisor, and it went really well. Then I had the opportunity to make a list of mental health providers. And this was awesome because I got to see like who was out in the community and who did what as a therapist and how these therapists could help certain ages of children. And that was awesome because I made a huge list of literally, I felt like it was like hundreds of therapists in the community or surrounding areas of Rexburg. And that was really awesome. Then we had a lot of community events that we got to put on as interns. And I did two main events. The first event that was really like my event was the 5K. And that's that little picture with us holding the sign right there is us at the 5K. And those are all the volunteers. And what we did at the 5Ks, we really tried to bring awareness of what the Upper Valley Child Advocacy Center was and how we are trying to help children and how donations are welcome and how we really just want to get us out into the community of letting people know, like, hey, we are child advocates, this is what we do, and this is how we can help you and your family if your family or a family member or someone you know has been through abuse. So that was a really cool opportunity to plan and to make flyers and make a Facebook page and invite others to join in. And then I had the opportunity to do the birthday bash, and that's where tons of vendors around Rexburg go to Madison Fairgrounds, and they let people know or what they have. And so we had the opportunity to educate and to help those individuals in our community know that, hey, we're the Child Advocacy Center, because surprisingly, a lot of people don't know what a Child Advocacy Center is. And that surprised me, and I actually didn't know before I started my internship. So that was really interesting to find out what it really was. Then we always had weekly meetings for staff with our internship supervisor. She would help us know, like, if we're on the right track, what our plans were for the week. And that was really helpful because it helped us as interns really know what to expect during the week. I had the opportunity to assist in a lot of forensic interviews, and that was very interesting because you got to help children. Basically, you don't do the forensic interview, but you help the child prepare for the forensic interview and help them after the interview, make them feel comfortable, bring them snacks, talk to them, make them kind of like feel comfortable of what they just shared and know that you're there for them and supporting them and you're wanting to help them if they need any help. I also had the chance to assist in a medical examination with a family, and that was cool because the child had been sexually abused, and so she went to a medical examination, and that like cleared it up and sent things to the law enforcement and to let them know, like, hey, this is what happened, this is what we found, and that was interesting. We also had a lot of trainings, and we did that periodically throughout the week, so I feel like I'm very educated in the child advocacy lifestyle. And then we had peer review, so that's when like we get in a room with tons of forensic interviewers and we listen to all their forensic interviews from the past that are already completed and are usually completed in their coursework too, like their casework too. And that was a great opportunity to learn about how forensic interviews work and what kind of questions they ask, how they ask, and what they can better at forensic interviews and stuff like that. And lastly, I read a lot of books. And that was actually one of my favorite parts of my internship because it showed me a lot of experiences that people went through during their sexual abuse or their physical abuse or their emotional abuse and how they overcame that. And you get to see the signs of how they didn't necessarily realize that this was leading up to abuse, and that was really interesting to learn about. I feel like I benefited in my internship in many ways because I've had a lot of opportunities to work with children, and the experiences I have from my education from BYU-Idaho in marriage and family, that has really helped me in my internship as well. So one way that I benefited in my internship was I worked really hard throughout my internship, and I made sure I stayed on task with projects. And that helped me learn the most because if I would just like sit and do nothing at my internship, I feel like I wouldn't have worked or learned as much as I needed to during this internship. I also felt like I benefited my internship in communication. I really tried to communicate with my supervisor, and I strived to ask her as many questions as I could to learn, and I was on time, and I showed them that I was prepared. And that really benefited me in the end because actually my supervisor offered me a job at the Upper Valley Child Advocacy Center, but she knew I was moving, so she's like, don't feel like you need to take it. And so obviously I didn't take it just because I am moving, but I definitely would have taken it if I would have stayed in Rexburg. But just like being open in my communication and asking all those questions showed my supervisor, hey, like, I'm here to learn. I'm here to really strive and to understand what you do. And I feel like I know that she appreciated that. Also, I really strived to offer to help whenever I could throughout my internship. So, like, if I completed a project, I'd be like, hey, like, what do you need me to do? I want to help you with whatever. And I know that was very helpful for my supervisor because that kind of lifted a weight off her shoulder, like knowing that I was able and willing to help her whenever. I participated and assisted with their needs. So whenever they needed me, I was there. Whenever they needed someone to do something, I would do it. And so I felt like that was something that helped my internship a lot. And I also built strong relationships with the people I came in contact with, whether that's families, children, or my coworkers, my other interns, or my supervisor. And that really helped me a lot and helped benefit my internship because it made it more fun and it made it so I could really help those around me. I benefited personally in so many ways. First, I learned that I really want to work with children because of this internship and I want to help them. And it helped me to understand families and how they react to things in difficult times, such as experiencing abuse. And I got to make connections with people that I never thought I would connect with. And that really benefited me because now I feel like I can go into the community and talk to people, be like, hey, like, let's learn about each other, let's make a relationship, and let's increase our knowledge in each other's work. I learned a lot of skills I didn't know before. I didn't know anything about forensic interviews. I didn't know anything about really what a child advocate does, but I learned how to be a child advocate. I learned how to ask good questions in forensic interviews. I learned how to really understand children at different developmental stages and stuff like that. And I grew in knowledge of child advocacy altogether and what that really was. So there are many ways that my coursework connected to my internship. First of all, I took a lot of child development classes, and that helped me with children and understanding how each child is different and how if a child is 3, that they might not disclose some information about the abuse, or if they're 17, they'll disclose more. And I thought that was very helpful to know from my classes at BYU-Idaho, because if I didn't take child development classes, I wouldn't know how to help those children. Also, family relationship courses, those were mainly my whole thing at BYU-Idaho. So I really knew how to interact and talk to families and really knew how to address the elephant in the room if I needed to, or help them in any way that I could. And also religion courses was a big help because it helped me think of those around me like the Savior would, and that's really important when you're dealing with families. All right, so lastly, my recommendations for other students is be an intern at Upper Valley Child Advocacy Center because it's so fun, and if you're a marriage and family studies major or child development or social work, it's definitely an internship for you. And try your best to learn and be hardworking. Don't just sit around and do nothing because that won't benefit you at all. Like, why are you even doing an internship if you aren't going to learn and try your best? Second to last, have fun. Don't just be boring and just be you, you know? And lastly, strive to ask questions and learn from your supervisors. So I just want to thank you for listening to my presentation. Thanks.